The killers, who murdered a 16-year-old boy in a brutal gang war which spilled out onto the streets of Greater Manchester, have been revealed. Alexander John Soyoye, also known as John, was stabbed to death in Moston on bonfire night after young men affiliated with rival gangs clashed. His killers, 7 young men and a 16-year-old boy, were part of a Rochdale and Oldham-based gang known as the Pall Mall Gang, the PMD, or representing the Danger, RTD. While John was linked to a rival gang known as the M40 or the Laners, who were based in Moston. His mother told of her devastation at her son's death, hitting out at his killers, who she described as animals, and telling how her son simply did not need to die. Just hours before he was murdered on November the 5th, 2020, members of the M40 gang had attacked the brother of 19-year-old Francesco Raggi, who's 19 years old, in Piccadilly Gardens. Members of the RTD, including Raggi, Christopher Semedo, who's 23, Ismail Correa, who's 20, Nelson Correa, who's 22, Mohamed Al-Jaff, who's 21, Brent Chipenda, who's 19, and Octavio Antonio, who's 19, headed to Moston to exact revenge. They became embroiled in a violent melee with 8 members of the M40 gang using knives and machetes. Overwhelmed, the M40 gang ran, but John had been slowed down due to being injured in the earlier fight, Manchester Crown Court heard. He became isolated when he was attacked by the group, punched, kicked, and struck him with a variety of weapons. John suffered 15 blows to his body and died at the scene. Police found drill rap lyrics from the teenage boy's phone which read, "Same day that my bro got touched is the same day that your bro got murdered." Following a 3-month trial, Raggi, Semedo, Ismail, and Nelson Correa, Chipenda, Antonio, and the teenage boy were convicted of his murder and were jailed for life. Al-Jaff was convicted of manslaughter and he's going to be sentenced at a later date. And all now be named because of the lifting of reporting restrictions. It comes as 10 men allegedly associated with the M40 gang go on trial accused of conspiracy to commit murder. Mr. Justice Sweeney, who presided over the previous trial, said this is yet another case that demonstrates the destructive and evil influence of gang culture on young people. It concerns the fighting sides of 2 gangs, the M40 gang in Moston and the release of Danger gang based in Oldham and Rochdale, which resulted in the senseless injury and death. John was not blameless, but he did not begin to deserve to die, let alone in the way that he did. John's death has been extremely painful and has been unbearable, his mother said. She said his death was a sudden shock, and I've been trying to understand how and why the people responsible have taken the life of John like that. They behaved like animals. They had very severely dealt with John and took his life away from me. These evil killers took away my happiness, my heart, and my peace. I cry every day I think about John 24 hours a day. I don't know if I can survive the death of John. I've never been so physically and mentally hurt. I just want to see my son. I want to hear him speak and hold his hand. John simply did not need to die. We can only hope that we find some solace in the fact that the culprits have been brought to justice. So the prosecutor, Andrew Halsom QC, said following the attack on Raggi's younger brother, the gang planned to get retribution for what had happened in various calls and messages. In CCTV footage, they were seen making their way to the junction of Moston Lane and Kenyon Lane on the tram. At around 7 p.m, the M40 group, which now numbered 8 including John, walked from Hartley Street and turned into Birchinall Street towards its junction with Ebsworth Street. Just a minute or so later, the CCTV footage captured a group of 13 as they walked along Moston Lane towards Kenyon Lane. Each of the young men had weapons, with Chipenda and John Soyoye attacking each other at the same time, and both were injured. The M40 then realised they were outgunned and outnumbered and retreated. The RTD pursued them, and John Soyoye was said to be slowed down by his injuries. Antonio was at the front of the group as they chased him down and was armed with a machete that John had dropped. They surrounded John, who had stumbled to the ground. All of them repeatedly attacked him as he lay helpless. The attack involved punches, kicks and sustained blows with a variety of weapons, and the group then left him to die alone on the streets. Post-mortem revealed that John died from 15 stab wounds to his front, side and back, and each of the 8 defendants were found unanimously guilty by a jury of the offences. So, Brent Chipenda from Gorton was jailed for life with a minimum term of 21 years. Christopher Semedo of Oldham was jailed for a minimum term of 24 years. Francesco Raggi of Oldham was jailed for a minimum term of 21 years. Octavio Antonio from Moston was jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years. Ismail Correa was jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 and a half years. Nelson Corrier from Oldham was jailed for life with a minimum term of 23.5 years, and the 16-year-old boy was jailed for life with a minimum term of 16 years. Al Jaff was convicted of manslaughter and he's going to be sentenced at a later date. Detective Chief Inspector Gareth Davis of GMP's Major Incident Team said this was a horrific, violent and senseless assault that cost a young boy his life. Thankfully, no innocent bystanders were injured in the disorder, but the result could have been more devastating. No family or parent should ever have to receive the news from the police that their son or daughter has been brutally murdered in the streets. I know that this trial has been incredibly difficult for John's family, and I hope that the sentences received early this year has given them at least a small sentence of justice and closure. Knives ruin lives, not only for the families impacted by knife crime, but also for those who carry them. 8 young men now face a significant amount of time in prison, and I hope that this sends a strong warning that carrying and using knives carries a significant consequence, and GMP will do all it can to ensure those responsible are apprehended and face the appropriate justice. So guys, that's a story coming out from Greater Manchester. Absolute madness. Let me know what you think. It's your boy GT. Keep it locked, keep it real.